Hello, and welcome to the Regrettable Century. We've got the Christian caucus of the Regrettable Century and its allies. Here today, it's Chris, Jason, Ben, Mir, and Daniel again. Daniel missed the last one, but I guess... Oh, no, we didn't end up recording that one. Never mind.
No, he did miss the last one.
He did miss the last one?
Yeah.
The one before we didn't record.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Daniel missed the last two, but only one of those actually matters.
Oh, wow. There's a secret one I didn't even know about.
I missed the last one also, but that one didn't matter either because so did Ben, even though he wasn't supposed to miss it. So the whole thing got canceled. But anyway.
But also, Mir and I both missed it as well, even though we were here.
Yeah.
Because it didn't happen.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
that is to say that...
a vanishing signifier, the void in the subject.
So that is to say that we're back with, I guess this is part 3, right? So starting chapter 2. Part 3, starting chapter 2 of Laudato Si, or Care for Our Common Home by the late Pope Francis. Yes, I guess, Mir, you've got a little bit of an introduction for us. Just jump right in, whatever you feel like.
Yes. So basically, in the introduction, and especially in the first chapter, what is happening to our common home, Pope Francis laid out the ecological crisis and the aim of the encyclical. And here in the chapter, the Gospel of Creation, he is trying to explain the Christian underpinning, the theological underpinning about why we have to care about this. And what he's trying to do is to show that the care for our common home is rooted in a view of creation and the created, and in that relationship. And he starts this chapter with a section called Introduction, in which he claims that ecology belongs to the sphere of science, but science always have to be interpreted. Like basically science is a vast amalgamation of facts, and we always use our perception filters to order the scientific knowledge. And different perception filters, different scientific traditions, different political traditions can make us view these scientific discoveries in new ways. And he claims that this is where theology proper enters as a way of seeing and understanding what is laid before us. So that is basically what he claims in the introduction. Paragraph 62 for those who are following.
I'm about to read that.
Yeah.
You done?
Yep.
Cool.
With the introduction, yes.
All right, cool. So, here we go. Chapter 2, the Gospel of Creation, paragraph number 62. Why should this document, addressed to all people of goodwill, include a chapter dealing with the convictions of believers? I am well aware that in the areas of politics and philosophy, there are those who firmly reject the idea of a creator, or consider it irrelevant, and consequently dismiss as irrational the rich contribution which religions can make towards an integral ecology and the full development of humanity. Others view religion simply as a subculture to be tolerated. Nonetheless, science and religion, with their distinctive approaches to understanding reality, can enter into immense dialogue, fruitful for both. And I think that Mir pretty much covered that with commentary. I don't know if you guys want to add anything else to it before we move on to section 1.
But
No, I kind of feel like this is just like, yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it immediately calls to mind many comrades,
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Of different categories. That some think that religion is a complete waste of time and has nothing to do with our liberatory projects, and then others tolerate it because those of us who have a quote-unquote attachments to religion are important to the to the goal, instead of it being an integral relationship, binding us.
That's true. There are those who I'll just say the way that some of us are actually close to, who basically view faith, in particular my faith, as I guess it has to be tolerated because there are contributions that I make which are good in spite of or somewhat irrespective of. It's like, at best, it's like, whatever. It's kind of like the way that you might not comment on an ugly shirt, you know?
You're the
Or
Cosby sweater
Yeah,
of
Yes.
the comrades.
or like if like you have a comrade, oh, this comrade is really into Warhammer 40k for some reason.
Yeah, it's like that.
Or why not? Whatever floats your boat, man. But like that has nothing to do with this project, and a lot of people on the left have a similar view to religion as most common people have toward Warhammer. Like, sure, that's a thing.
Right. Like, it's like, that's a thing that I guess you could do to fill your time if you need something to do. But I don't see why it's relevant. And also, shut up.
That's a thing that, like, the most unhappy and maladjusted people in the world that I've ever met will say, yeah, well, I guess if you need something to make you feel better. It's like, bitch,
Right.
you need something to make you feel better.
Like, and if that's not
about
like
a little
that's not a
opium?
dig. That's not a dig, but it's true. The
Yeah.
least happy people who I have ever met, the least happy people who I know, who I also do know, will definitely not listen to this, anyways. But I would
We'll
like
talk
to.
shit to you for needing a crutch.
Yeah.
Hey, Jason, remember that one guy that came around whose name I won't mention? Oh, you can cut it out, but he wore like a top hat and he like had a cane and stuff and used to wear like a pocket watch. And he was one of our contacts in the ISO, and we were like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't try so hard with this guy.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah.
That was a really weird experience.
And then he became like sort of alt-right before alt-right was a thing. Like immediately he left us and was like, actually, I'm a libertarian and a Norse pagan. And
Oh, yeah, and
actually,
also-
and a social Darwinist.
And also, revolution has exclusively been a negative development, a negative process. Every revolution has only set societies back.
Yeah, that's something that he said.
He was in the
Immediately
ISO.
after, he was trying. He was a contact, and then he quit being a contact to become like
I was
a.
going to say, maybe the sector of permanent revolution is the wrong one to be in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he did us a favor by de-contacting himself.
Yes. Anyway, moving on.
Well, I have one thought on the introduction too. Just that I think it's kind of significant that Pope Francis like words it the way he words it. I see him as kind of like making room for other people that definitely don't agree with this. But the like implicit thing he's doing in this chapter, which I'm sure we'll talk more about, is he's providing the own internal reasons and logic why this set of beliefs should occasion these ways of thinking, and more than that, these ways of like being. And I think about like, it's like regardless of what you think about the whole like truth claims of Christianity or even the discourse of theology, which I will admit is not my favorite, but it's still like, I can fall into this sometimes too, where I'm just like, well, it's obvious that we should care about the earth or humanity or whatever. And I think he's saying like, it's not obvious, and you have to like, it's actually worthwhile to spell out the reasons why within your own tradition and discourse.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
And
And I do
especially,
think he does a brilliant job of that.
yeah. And there's obviously like, I mean, I wouldn't really call it polemical because I don't think he's using that kind of tone, but he's kind of correcting the record of like, this is how it's been misinterpreted. It's, people have read these things and thought these things. And taking the wrong conclusions. And so just thinking through like what, that relationship between like what your premises are and what they lead to is kind of really important.
One final thing about this before we jump in, I think the question of audience is important. Like you've said, there's an invitation to everyone, even those who don't believe in a creator. He speaks directly to them, and then we go into, it's almost like he's inviting an outer audience to witness him speaking to the inner audience. So that like he's making the hermeneutical justifications for the faithful, for the those outside of the faith to witness and recognize, and basically translate. He's doing translation between different audiences, who basically often segregate in different languages, almost in different kind of worldviews, and he's basically bridging them all. So I think that's incredible.
Absolutely.
Right on. Okay.
Okay. Shall we go on to the first official subchapter?
The light offered by faith.
Yes.
Did you want to do introduction or commentary?
I can do introduction to. That's how I prepared it. Like for.
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
And this is the light offered by faith, and here basically he expands and deepens what he said in the introduction. He claims that ecology is something that is not something out there for proper Christians, but a way of living embedded in the created world. And therefore, if ecology is the relationship between man and earth, man and the created, it cannot be purely reduced to a scientific endeavor, because science tends to silo everything into smaller and smaller niches. And his contention here, and I think the whole concept of integral ecology, is that ecology and science and faith has to take a broader view that covers the whole of human experience. And if we see ecology as something, as the relationship between man and the created world, then it therefore follows in the light of faith that there is a certain thelos, a certain movement in this relationship. That is an explicit Catholic idea that is not so forthcoming in Eastern Orthodoxy or in Protestantism. This idea that every relationship has an inbuilt movement, or almost like a sort of end goal, and this telos has to be cultivated through responsibility to our relationships with different aspects of creation. And he ties this back to science, and this is also something that really distinguished the Catholic tradition from the Protestant, some Eastern religions, but also from some parts of the Eastern Orthodoxy, that we can learn about our place in the world through science, but not by science alone. We have to view science through the light of the faith, to rediscover this tell us. But science and reason have a place in faith. We are not speaking about some abstract mysticism here. It is not the Christianity of Karl Barth, for example, who believed that the world is here, God is there, and our relationship with God is there, and never shall the two meet. No, what he's arguing is that the light of the faith can offer us an understanding of the world and our place in it through science, and that this relationship creates a feedback loop that lead us to discover more about ourselves, and then more and more about our place in the world, and more about the faith, like an inward dialectic that is simultaneously inward and outwards.
Okay, yeah. All right. The light offered by faith, paragraph 63 and 64. Given the complexity of the ecological crisis and its multiple causes, we need to realize that the solutions will not emerge from just one way of interpreting and transforming reality. Respect must also be shown for the various cultural riches of different peoples, their art and poetry, their interior life and spirituality. If we are truly concerned to develop ecology capable of remedying the damage we have done, no branch of the sciences and no form of wisdom can be left out, and that includes religion and the language particular to it. The Catholic Church is open to dialogue with philosophical thought. This has enabled her to produce various syntheses between the faith and reason. The development of the Church's social teaching represents such a synthesis with regard to social issues. This teaching is called to be enriched by taking up new challenges. Furthermore, although this encyclical welcomes dialogue with everyone so that together we can seek paths of liberation, I would like from the outset to show how faith convictions can offer Christians and some other believers as well ample motivation to care for nature and for the most vulnerable of their brothers and sisters. If the simple fact of being human moves people to care for the environment of which they are a part, Christians in turn realize that their responsibility within creation and their duty towards nature and their Creator are essentially part of their faith, which is a quote from John Paul II.
He's drawing from John Paul II throughout this chapter.
Yeah. It is good for humanity and the world at large when we believers better recognize the ecological commitments which stem from our convictions.
So I think one of the very earliest things, the first things he says in this is really worth dwelling on and just thinking about for a while, and just it's really illustrative of this entire approach. The Catholic social teaching is the result of the synthesis between, let's call it secular philosophy, and the more scriptural side of like how we interpret the world. The merger of those two things is how we get a more clarified version of both of those things. And with Catholic social teaching being seen as like an exemplary of what is hoped for in this necessary dialogue between believers and non-believers, and also of other kinds of people of other faith traditions. I mean, honestly, I think that a lot of this would just be seen as like outright heretical by a lot of people who just are kind of bad Catholics.
I mean, I think they're quite vocal people who see this as heresy in the Catholic Church.
Yeah, like most of American traditionalist Catholics hated just about everything that Pope Francis ever said. Quote, traditionalist.
Yeah.
Well,
it's an interesting kind of traditionalist to be against Rome.
Yeah.
Well, it's a tradition that goes all the way back to the 16th century. You know, in Germany.
It goes all the way back to what is it?
Württemberg.
Yeah.
I mean, I am loath to defend the sort of weird traditionalist. And we are speaking about Taylor Marshall. He basically did that yesterday as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But to be fair, a lot of the more liberal wings of the Catholic Church in the US didn't do Francis any favors. Like, they cherry-picked things and took it and ran with it in completely insane directions as well.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, I think that whether you are of a more liberal or more conservative, a left or a right political orientation, if you try to make the church more like your political practice, like, there are these people who you see pictures of like a pride flag in their vestments. It's like, that's not really what we're trying to. That's not really what that's not the point.
No, and for those who aren't aware, each vestment has a symbolic meaning that
Exactly
ties it to the liturgical calendar and indicates which part of the life, ministry, birth, ministry, and death and resurrection of Jesus, like, has to teach us. So it's not an arbitrary just like piece of clothing. So switching it out with like some different color that you think like might look cooler or something is just completely just makes the vestments devoid of any meaning whatsoever, which I guess is fine in like the Protestant denominations who don't follow the church calendar. But
yeah,
like,
I guess I am thinking of Lutherans mostly. It was like,
well, but like that,
yeah.
that stuff happens a lot in the Catholic Church as well.
Well, Lutherans are heretical Catholics, so
yes, that's right.
True.
Well,
and the thing is,
it happens in the Episcopal Church too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is not like a diatribe against any particular viewpoint that people should have, and I agree with that one. I just think that there's a time and a place, and there's a way to express your understanding of the love of Christ, and it's not by turning everything into a badge. Not everything is a protest sign,
Exactly.
Well, how are you supposed to curate your aesthetic properly if your church doesn't also curate their aesthetic to your liking?
I guess I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah, man. How are you supposed to properly signal the virtues that you've come to adopt this week? All right, let's see.
That's a good note to end that section on.
Yeah. And we're at section 2, the wisdom of the biblical accounts. If you want to
Sure.
kick us off with the intro, Mir.
This is probably the most dense part of this chapter. First, I would like to, because very much in the introduction here is implicit and somewhat spelled out about the different sort of relationships that Francis wants us to focus on, which we talked more about in our first episode. But I want to reiterate that because that is like the metaphysical underpinning of this introduction, of this chapter, about the 4 relationships that constitute a human person, and that all of these 4 relationships are fundamentally broken under original sin. And that is our relationship with ourselves, our view of ourselves, the good things I want to do, I do not, but the bad things I do not want to do, I do. Is the best way of thinking about that first part. The second part is our relationship with God is fundamentally broken. The third is our relationship with our fellow man, our neighbor. And the fourth part is our relationship with creation. And these are not hierarchical, like they are all interdependent. You cannot heal one without healing the other. And they also bleed into each other in their brokenness. And that is like basically it is important to keep that in mind, because he speaks a lot in this chapter about that God has have created man with infinite dignity, but that this dignity is broken, but that God and man is fundamentally created, and God created us and saw that it was good. And then he goes on to basically talk very beautifully about the, well, then he goes on basically to do 6 points of exegesis, where he explains 6 different parts of the Old Testament through this view of our relationship with God and creation and our neighbor. So his point is that in the very beginning of Genesis, man is created with immense dignity of each person, who is not just something but someone. We are persons, not individuals. And here he draws very, very much on JP2. And he also keeps on harping. Man is capable of self-knowledge, self-possession, and is free, and is freely giving himself and entering into communion with other persons.
And that is what makes possible humankind's personhood, not the individuated nature, right?
No.
But the communion.
Dialogic nature.
All right. Well, I guess I'll dive in. The wisdom of the biblical accounts. And I think I'll pause in between sections because it's very long.
Yeah.
Without repeating the entire theology of creation, we can ask what the great biblical narratives say about the relationship of human beings with the world. In the first creation account in the book of Genesis, God's plan includes creating humanity. After the creation of man and woman, God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. Genesis 1:31. The Bible teaches that every man and woman is created out of love and made in God's image and likeness. This shows us the immense dignity of each person, who is not just something, but someone. He is capable of self-knowledge, of self-possession, and of freely giving himself and entering into communion with other persons. St. John Paul II stated that the special love of the Creator for each human being, quote, confers upon him or her an infinite dignity. Those who are committed to defending human dignity can find in the Christian faith the deepest reasons for this commitment. How wonderful is the certainty that each human life is not adrift in the midst of a hopeless chaos, in a world ruled by pure chance or endlessly recurring cycles. The Creator can say to each one of us, quote, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, Jeremiah 1:5. We were conceived in the heart of God, and for this reason, each of us is the result of a thought of God. Each of us is willed, each of us is loved, each of us is necessary. And I think that's probably John Paul II there as well, that last bit.
Yeah, he's making good.
It's also
he's making good use of the anti-communist cult warrior Pope.
That was Benedict, actually.
Oh,
that was Benedict?
Goes for him as well.
Yeah. Well,
what's interesting is so I was listening this morning about not this morning, whatever. Earlier today I was listening to a segment in the show called Breaking Points about this new startup of these people who are basically making woke eugenics by making it like possible for like rich people to select the preferred embryo. And in some ways it's like in vitro IVF is already kind of like this, but it's even more so. It's just like the selection process where you can decide like every single thing, which is like, it's billed as being like a way of, avoiding like birth defects and so on. But it's also like you could pick the idea is that you might be able to pick eye color or like tendency toward like blindness or something. And then I read this and it's like, each of us has value. Each of us is necessary. It's like, I couldn't think of a more humanitarian approach, and I couldn't contrast with a more inhuman approach to life, which is, I mean, when people talk about life being sacred, before I was Catholic, I just didn't really understand just how much that is true. And now I wanted to like scream it from the rooftops, but then people would think I'm trying to copy Donald Trump.
Well, my jeans are blue.
Oh, like Sydney Sweeney, you Nazi.
Sorry.
Man, I gotta say that's like the worst faux controversy so far.
I know.
Yeah.
I couldn't possibly care less about a faux controversy than that.
I was just going to say, I only know that it's a meme, and I don't know details, nor do I want to know details. So,
okay.
Well, here are all the details that you don't want to know.
Please do not describe it to me.
This company hired this woman who is seen as attractive, and that's racist.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing.
Well,
they're also kind of trying to poke the bear.
yeah, I mean, they knew what they were doing.
Well, sure. I mean, but they knew that by doing that thing, they would get that result.
Yeah.
Well, it is a commercial for jeans, and they play very much with like jeans.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah.
Clear. I mean, but like,
Obvious, yeah.
and
the way that people are saying that it's pro-eugenics is like so dumb.
Oh yeah,
Far,
Well, it's like
far
the
too dumb to
the
handle.
acknowledgement of genes is not enough to be eugenicist.
Well, I mean, I do have friends that say things like that. Like if you pay attention to things like genes and phenotypes and DNA that you share, like if you have ever paid attention to 23andMe or something like that, then you are like pro eugenics.
Yeah, that's just it's funny because okay, never mind. It doesn't matter because
Total shit libri. Anyway, moving on.
yeah, because we're actually talking about this encyclical, which is much more interesting.
yes.
Yes.
Well, so like now we have gone through his first like short exegesis, which is an explanation of the whole scripture, and that was like his first of 6, I think, short passages of the Bible which he explains. And the first one was like the first story of creation in Genesis. Then he goes on to basically explore the parable of Cain and Abel to show how our broken relationship with ourselves and our own insecurities very, very much overflows to our relationship with the other person, which we then kill. And then when we kill the other person or hurt the other person, that also kills our relationship with the earth. Cain is forced to wander the earth. And it also destroys his relationship with God.
Yeah, God also makes him no longer white. I'm sorry, I'm just here to troll today.
You're doing a really good job of it. So.
That's literally what the Mormons believe, and then some like other. I mean, it was sort of always implicit in a lot of sort of low Protestant churches, but then some of them made it explicit, like the like the white nationalist churches, like the explicitly white nationalist churches.
Yeah, the Christian identity church.
So we know where Ben got it from then.
Yeah.
Hey, I mean, like Chris said, that's like a subterranean, even if it's disavowed and shown to be like bad theology, that is subterranean,
well, I mean, it's really powerful
in our where we come from.
Well, I mean, it's really powerful. I mean, Chris Hegseth belongs very clearly to that tradition.
Yeah.
Pete Hegseth, but yes.
Pete Hegseth, yeah.
Pete Hegseth.
I don't like being associated with that guy.
Pete Hegseth has a really cool tattoo, and he doesn't deserve it.
his Crusader LARPer tattoos, it's actually cultural appropriation, and I don't appreciate that.
Very much so.
Yeah. He shouldn't have Deus Vult on his arm if he's... Well, first of all, he shouldn't have Deus Vult on his arm unless he's ready to go and, like, take back Jerusalem for the papacy.
Or at least just stop arming Israel while they try to, ethnically cleanse all Christians from the Holy Land.
Unless he's ready to take a vow of chastity and live in a tent in the Holy Land, then
Knights Templar, Daniel.
Yeah.
Dude, I mean, like, he'd have to give up drinking. He couldn't do that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I think he couldn't even do that to, like, go through a press conference, which is...
No, his first press conference after he promised to quit drinking, he's, like, got, like, a scotch and rocks. I don't know if you saw that. Yeah.
Oh, I mean... Well, but, like, that's one of the most... That's the only relatable thing about him that, like, okay, it's all quick devices.
Well, I mean,
like, I'm not trying to pick at him for saying, like, oh, this guy sucks because he's an alcoholic. Like, I know that's tough. It's not, just in case you're listening, you don't know this. I'm not at all trying to make fun of this alcoholic. I'm just saying that he's probably not someone who should be held up as a paragon of virtue.
Well, he also can't do chin-ups. I don't know if you saw that video.
And that's the real reason why he should not be held up as a paragon of virtue.
Well, I mean,
exactly.
Is that, like, he's such a huge piece of shit, and
he's such a poser
that, like, we don't need to make fun of him for being an alcoholic. Like,
right. There we go.
Right. We can hate him for genuinely legitimate reasons. Like,
you know what else?
For being out of shape.
We're 45 minutes in, and we're almost to part 3 of this chapter. I don't think that we're going to finish this whole chapter even.
No, we're only really like
slower.
35 minutes in. There's a lot of screwing around at the beginning that's being recorded. Yeah. All right, we're gonna move on now.
No.
Moving on. After came. Oh
no, Ben is screwing us up.
Ben wants to bring us back to the beginning.
Yeah, no, I just want to say that. So earlier I addressed the sort of inner and outer audience of the human community, and the quote from Jeremiah 1:5 that Chris read: "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you." Getting to this sort of hard to fathom the sacredness of every person, every being, every creature, every sparrow, every blade of grass, every child born with imperfectly, quote unquote, every person born in poverty, and so on. Hard to fathom something more anathema to the accelerationist view of humankind, of transhumanity, post-humanity, and so forth. But also kind of have to rattle my brain to find something approaching that from the secular world. This estimation of, like, the maximum sacred meaning and value, that God, you are a thought in God's mind. It's hard to approach that without religious language for me.
I mean, it's hard, but for me, it's impossible to approach that. It's like, because there's no point of comparison. It's like, if you're trying to set up a spectrum, on one end, on the far end, on this end, there's faith, but then it just goes forever in this direction because there's no point to cap it off. It's just a matter of how you decide you want to feel, as opposed to how you feel you should feel.
Well, I mean, there are genuine attempts that have gone a long way in this direction in the secular world. I would try to, like, ecofeminism, for example, have a long tradition of this. Rebecca Solzhenitsyn is like the most contemporary example, who like actually have this view of, or proclaims this view of human dignity connected to the earth and creation, but in secular terms. It is possible. It is far from mainstream, but I think we have to give the more liberal, ecological, feminist tradition its due. It does exist.
Okay, that's fair. That's a good point.
Yeah. After Cain and Abel, he goes on to explore Noah and the flood, which basically is a collectivization of the problem of Cain and Abel, but also like about the brokenness of relationships with the world, ourselves, and how these destroy the world. But it's also a story about hope, that even when, and I think this is something that we on the more pessimistic left need to take to heart, like that even when things can seem as most hopeless, there is hope. Because the story of the flood is also the story of the redemption after the flood, that we survive through.
Hey, so I'm sorry, Mira, you're on 70, and we're about to do 66 still.
Oh,
so
sorry.
You're way out ahead of us.
Yeah.
But well, I'll just cruise through these next few to catch up to where Mira is, and then we'll talk about it. Okay. I don't know if were you done there, or did you have more? Okay, cool. All right. Well, I'll just cruise through this, and we'll get up to 70. The creation accounts in the book of Genesis contain, in their own symbolic and narrative language, profound teachings about human existence and its historical reality. They suggest that human life is grounded in three fundamental and closely intertwined relationships: with God, with our neighbor, and with the earth itself. According to the Bible, these three vital relationships have been broken, both outwardly and within us. This rupture is sin. The harmony between the Creator, humanity, and creation as a whole was disrupted by our presuming to take the place of God and refusing to acknowledge our creaturely limitations. This, in turn, distorted our mandate to have dominion over the earth, as in Genesis 1:28, to till it and keep it, Genesis 2:15. As a result, the originally harmonious relationship between human beings and nature became conflictual. See Genesis 3:17 through 19. It is significant that the harmony which St. Francis of Assisi experienced with all creatures was seen as a healing of that rupture. St. Bonaventure held that through the universal reconciliation with every creature, St. Francis in some way returned to the state of original innocence. This is a far cry from our situation today, where sin is manifest in all of its destructive power, and wars, the various forms of violence and abuse, the abandonment of the most vulnerable, and attacks on nature.
Shall we pause there and let people fill in? I'm sorry for going so far ahead. My notes tried to thematize it in a different way. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Yeah, we could, yeah. If people have something to say about that. I mean, I can say I like here that the sin, that rupture that has caused this metabolic rift is not just sin in general. This is a sin that the Catholic Church recognizes that a lot of Protestant denominations don't, and that would be ecological destruction, not caring for our common home, greed, rapaciousness in accumulation, things that Calvinist influenced denominations see as a virtue, right?
It's also significant that sin is primarily outward and relational,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
here, and not some like
Not
internal
personal.
state of individualized personal shame or whatever that Ben was talking about earlier. This like sort
Right.
of we've sort of all been allotted our individual sin, which, you know, I know there's precedent in Catholic theology for some of that, but here he's making a very deliberate point, I think, in relation to this whole idea of the relational, that sin, the most egregious sin, is breaking the relational.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And in Catholicism, sin is personal as well, right?
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, but a redemption is communal, right? Even
Yeah.
the act of reconciliation requires you to be held accountable to your brothers and sisters. And in every Mass, we ask our brothers and sisters to help us overcome our sin and to pray for us for God to forgive us from that sin.
Yeah.
So yeah, even if sin is a personal sin that an individual does, it's still, reconciliation is still communal.
And the personal is relational, always.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's
Yes.
that's the thing I've said previously about maybe last time we talked about what Protestantism in its worst forms gave us was this our own personal Jesus, you know,
Mm-hmm.
which is like it's kind of like the way I was talking to Daniel earlier about this, about the way that Christian Zionists view Israel, right? They have a relationship to a fictional version, a fantastical version of Israel that is not based upon what is shared by the world. And like that, they have a relationship, and I don't want to be bullheaded or prejudiced in this, but in my own experience, that's the way they relate to Jesus. It's not a Jesus that is shared with the world.
Right.
It is a personal, individuated Jesus. They have a fictional, I will call it. There's a personal, individuated, fantastical, fictional Israel. And that is also the register in which faith operates. That is the register in which sin is atoned for.
Jesus is my boyfriend.
They've got the American Jesus.
And all of this, I think, is coming back to this great break that Francis is trying to highlight.
Well, and I think that also what he's trying to point out is that, like, even the things that we view as our most private sins have a social dimension. To speak in the parlance of 60s feminism, the personal is political, the personal is theological.
I think that there's a parallel between the dispensationalist heresy that we were just discussing with, got to have this weird version of Israel that some American Protestants will have like created. But there's also sort of a paint by numbers kind of script that they're trying to fulfill in order to trigger the end times. You know, they're trying to get Jesus to come back by having the third temple being built in Jerusalem on where the Dome of the Rock currently stands. And they go so far as to even like funding genetic research to be able to create red heifers so that they could be sacrificed on the site of the new temple to trigger the beginning of the end times. And I was thinking about this the other day, about how much this reminds me of the American left, with how we think that we're going to have the revolution again, and how we have to like LARP our preferred revolution in order to get the sequence of events to happen. Like if you're a Trotskyist, like some of the American Trotskyist groups want to create a social democratic party for them to be interests into, so they can take it over and make it into a workers' party. Others would like to convert the Democratic Party into that. Anyway, there's like all these different versions of how they think that they can LARP things that happened in the past in order to create the It's sort of eschatology by numbers, be it revolutionary eschatology or like bringing about the end times.
That's like a really good point. It's like really clear that way.
And
I was just gonna say, for all of the Ted Cruz aficionados, the dispensationalists out there, I would just
Heretics.
refer them. Yes, the heretics. I would just refer them back to paragraph 67 and just say, as Pope Francis reminds us, we are not God.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah.
Oh well,
That's why I could.
what do you mean we're not God? I mean, I'm Ted Cruz. I mean, I talk to God every day. Sorry, that was my Ted Cruz impersonation.
Have you ever heard any of his Star Wars impressions? It's just imagine like him quoting Star Wars lines in his annoying Ted Cruz voice. Yeah.
There's a video artist Ted Cruz. There's a video artist Vic Berger who he does like, I've shown Ben some of these. He'll take videos that are already weird and just remix them to enhance their weirdness.
Jim Baker.
So he does a bunch on Jim Baker, but he has like a 20-minute super clip of Ted Cruz. Just it's like really difficult to make it through those 20 minutes because it's so distilled. It's like all these different events and scenes, and one of them he's doing Star Wars characters. Anyway, that's a far cry from an encyclical, but
yeah. Okay, so are we on 67 now?
Yeah.
Or did we just do 67?
No, Jason just read the first sentence. We are not.
I just referenced 67.
Okay. We are not God. The earth was here before us, and it has been given to us. This allows us to respond to the charge that Judeo-Christian thinking, on the basis of the Genesis account which grants man dominion over the earth, as in Genesis 1:28, has encouraged the unbridled exploitation of nature by painting him as domineering and destructive by nature. This is not a correct interpretation of the Bible as understood by the Church. Although it is true that we Christians have at times incorrectly interpreted the Scriptures, nowadays we must forcefully reject the notion that our being created in God's image and given dominion over the earth justifies absolute domination over other creatures. The biblical texts are to be read in their context, with an appropriate hermeneutic, recognizing that they tell us to till and keep the garden of the world, as in Genesis 2:15. Tilling refers to cultivating, plowing, and working, while keeping means caring and protecting, overseeing, and preserving. This implies a relationship of mutual responsibility between human beings and nature. Each continuity can take us from the bounty of the earth, whatever it needs for substance, but it also has the duty to protect the earth and ensure its fruitfulness for coming generations. Quote, the earth is the Lord's, Psalms 24:1. Psalms 24:1. To him belongs the, quote, earth with all that is within it, Deuteronomy 10:14. Thus, God rejects every claim to absolute ownership. Quote, the land shall not be sold in perpetuity, for the land is mine. For you are strangers and sojourners with me. Leviticus 25:23. Yeah. I love that. The land is not to be sold in perpetuity, for the land is mine.
Yeah.
That's God speaking, by the way.
God's an authoritarian communist dictator.
To shout out to my brothers and sisters in the faith, I have a Muslim friend who always says about landlords. What the fuck is a landlord? There's no lord over the land but Allah.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Amen.
Absolutely.
Which is a proper response.
Yes.
Yeah.
This the first bit of this talks about incorrect Christian interpretations of the idea that man has dominion over the earth is exactly what I was referring to earlier when I was talking about sort of the Calvinist interpretation, specifically the Puritan interpretation, if we're thinking about the United States, and that's where I live, so I'm often doing that. But like the charge that is given that you must increase the profitability of land whenever when it comes under your care. So the idea that you have to build and clear cut and plant and increase your own wealth in order to show that you are correctly using God's gifts. And that's sort of, and if you've ever read The Enchantment of Mammon or listened to our series on it, that sort of is the basis for the heresy that is, American Christianity and the real religion of America, which is the worship of Mammon. And so it's this sort of Calvinist, subsect of Calvinist interpretation that you have to constantly improve on God's gifts. And improve, of course, is not subjective. It means to build up, to extract wealth from.
To capitalize.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think one of the primary points and problems of that is in order to have that belief, you then see the land that you're coming to as inert or blank or kind of fresh or virgin. And in other words, there's it's without history, and we can't leave aside the question of people that might have been living there before, like indigenous populations. But even if no one was living there, I think this opening sentence is kind of incredible. The earth was here before us, and it has been given to us.
Yeah.
There's no virgin land. The earth has a history. It's the history of human relationship with the environment and the land. So it's that's also just cutting off that that sort of Calvinist interpretation right at the root as well, saying that no, there was always something before. You never come to a tabula rasa.
Right. Well, or as Thomas Paine says in Agrarian Justice, the men did not make the earth. It is the value of the improvements only, and not the earth itself, that is individual property. Every proprietor owes to the community a ground rent for the land which he holds.
Right.
Amen. And I think another important thing that he is not explicitly talking about here, but very implicitly in the notion of dominion and tilling and keeping, is the notion of Catholic hierarchy. How are we properly to understand hierarchy within social relationships overall? And we have the classical liberal idea where the most gifted guy who just happened to be a CEO somewhere will do something great, and in order to do that great invention he needs employees who do what he says, and that's the role of the leader. That's the liberal view of hierarchy. What he's saying here is that dominion is an act of service. If you look at the Catholic Church, the highest authority, except from God and Jesus, but the highest visible authority in the world is the Pope, who is not called the Pope. What is he called? The Vicar of Christ, the servant of the servants of God. The idea of hierarchy is that the person at the top is the one who serves the most.
Right.
So, one of the things that it's easy to misinterpret about Catholic theology when nature is discussed is the idea that, like in this last paragraph, it says that the earth was here before us and it has been given to us. And that sort of may indicate that nature is separate from all other things, that nature is separate from us as humans, right? That we are not actually integrally a part of nature. And Catholic theology believes that all of creation is a reflection of the face of God. So we and the plants and the trees and the animals and the air and the waters and everything is a reflection of the face of God and is thus carrying a spark of divinity within it, right? Nature is divine. Human beings have the potential to ascend and unify with God, right? All of nature is part of it, a sort of a system that is imbued with God's Spirit, right? And it's not just like inanimate objects that we've been given dominion over. So I think that's borderline sounding like I'm talking about panentheism, but I think that's okay.
Panentheism is okay. It's an accepted position within the Catholic Church.
Yes.
Pantheism is not, but pantheism
yes.
is.
Panentheism, for those who aren't familiar, is just that the idea that God is within everything. All matter contains God, right? And God is much more than the sum of the existing material world and exists far beyond it. But that's actually the Hegelian approach to God, is the panentheist approach, because it comes directly out of the Hermetic tradition, which is firmly rooted in Catholic theology, going all the way back to, I forget how far it goes back, but I'm thinking of Meister Eckhart and then Saint Bonaventure as well.
If you read the Apostolic Fathers, it's quite clearly there.
Yeah, which you would know better than me.
It's also pretty emphasized in the Eastern Orthodox churches.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Divine Sophia, or the wisdom of God, is a part of everything. And even, sometimes going as far as reading in the Psalms where it talks about wisdom as like, that is that part of like God's emanation speaking.
Which fits.
It's not foreign. Yeah.
It sounds Gnostic. It sounds Gnostic if you're not familiar with Eastern Christianity.
Well, right. And also if you're not familiar with the religious orders of Catholicism.
Oh, sure.
Like the Franciscans are masters of this.
But it fits perfectly well, without explaining fully, but as Chris was saying, but it fits perfectly well within the belief in God's omnipresence and omniscience.
Yes.
If God is in every single thing and being.
Yeah.
I am always with you. Because God is in all things.
And if we're to take another example of a Catholic order, which probably is one of the more influential orders in modernity, it's the Jesuits.
Right.
And they have two mottos: contemplation in action, which is a whole different thing. But the other thing, which basically the whole novitiate is about, schooling Jesuits in this, to see God in everything.
Yeah.
Well, and so the possibility for this being, canonical exists within all of Christianity. If you're willing to just accept what it means, right? As Ben was saying, right? If God is omnipresent, then of course panentheism is scripturally canonical, right?
Yeah, but
theologically canonical. But I think that
compatible with Calvinism or Lutheranism.
Exactly. So what I was going to say is, it's like specifically like Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy have this view of, as is being expressed here, of God's creation and of life in general as being sacred. Like if you were to take what Pope Francis is saying seriously here, and what everyone that he's drawing from scripturally and theologically, if you're to take him seriously here, then digging up a ditch in your backyard is something that has to be taken very seriously, because you're altering what has been perfectly created by God. And should you do it? Should you dig it up? Sure. If it's something that's going to increase, if it's something that's going to help you and something that you need to do. If you're really to take it seriously, should you kill an animal for food, right? That's something that has an enormous amount of weight. Should you kill another human being? Almost certainly no, right? But if it is to be done, it's something that has a monumental sort of importance that has to be taken into consideration. All of these things are incredibly important. Mm-hmm. Chopping down a tree, killing an animal, striking another human being, whatever, right? This is all of monumental importance if you take seriously that everything is a reflection of the face of God and is imbued with God's Spirit.
But if you don't take it seriously, then you can just clear cut everything and put up a parking lot. And,
Yeah.
you know,
And then you have to hear that song forever.
that's yes, which is that's how
Not the original by Joni Mitchell, but the awful cover by like the Counting Crows or whatever.
Luckily,
I don't even like the Joni
I'm not
Mitchell
familiar.
song.
It's not my
Yeah.
favorite of her works, but
Yeah.
I have a
Okay,
question.
so
what? Well, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say what Chris is saying. It also raises an interesting point with like sort of commands or ethics, because like just following on what you were saying, if that is true, then what he's describing here means that any action or ethics is contextual and relational. So it's almost impossible to give like a blanket command or statement for every case. It's like you have to, he just says it earlier, you need to have a proper hermeneutic for approaching a situation. And like, I don't know if you guys have talked about like Alistair McIntyre. It just reminds me of that era or realm of like Catholic ethics, where it's more focused on sort of the context and the relationality of a thing, which, as you're saying, it makes it really important and serious, but it also makes it like, it's almost like there's no right answer. You know, you could say maybe like the 10 Commandments or this rubric, but if you're given any sort of like scenario, it's like you have to be an expert at studying that scenario to come to the conclusion.
McIntyre specifically is a virtue ethicist, right? And you know, if you're to you know, internalize the virtues, the ones that he is specifically saying that you should orient towards, and of course there are secular versions of virtue ethics as well, but those would be Aquinas's virtues, right? And I think that anchors it pretty well. Like, if you're accepting that Aquinas's virtues are what you should orient your ethics towards. But even then, it's all relational. It needs a proper hermeneutic. And I think that built into all of this is the idea that you need the Catholic Church to help you interpret everything. That's what Pope Francis would say, you know?
Yeah, no more plain reading. That way leads to death. I have a question here on the last part of the section 67, where he quotes Psalms and Deuteronomy. The earth is the Lord's, to him belongs the earth with all that is within it. Thus God rejects every claim to absolute ownership. And then he quotes Leviticus. The land shall not be sold in perpetuity, for the land is mine. And this is the bit that I have a question about. For you are strangers and sojourners with me. There's an immediate way of reading that says you are the strangers and sojourners with me on my absolute dominion, or you are strangers and sojourners alongside me. I am also a stranger and sojourner, which is to say that ownership doesn't have the same meaning for God as it does for us, as it does for the Puritans, you know, refracting the church teaching and gospel of you know, early capital back onto it. I'm just kind of dwelling at this. Might be a misreading, but I just find that really interesting. The open possibility of what it means to be a stranger and sojourner with the Lord.
Yeah, like I think that is the proper Catholic answer, as always, would be yes. to both. Like, we have the aspect of God, who is the creator and which we belong to in this world, but we also have the aspect of Christ, who was thrown down as a sojourner, as a refugee, incarnated into a world under original sin. And since this world is under original sin, he was also a sojourner and refugee with us. So both is correct. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that if you take one without the other, you can end up in really weird places with both of these readings. Therefore, it's always the hierarchical and the horizontal parallel. to each other.
I mean, and I would just throw in that, this is the Israelites before they have a temple, and so they're wandering. Like, God is wandering. He is homeless.
Right.
He's
Yeah.
in the tent wherever they tent.
Right.
So I would be inclined to read it, as you said, the second, that I am a stranger and sojourner, or resident alien, as some other translations have it.
But that makes for an interesting tension, because what it says, he says just before that is, the land is mine. Right?
And we have great problems with living in that tension.
Yeah.
And I think that is perhaps the part of our Jewish legacy that the Christian faith has the hardest part of reconciling, is that Jewish spirituality and the Jewish tradition is built very much on these tensions. The Catholic Church is usually quite good at dwelling in yes and, but I think classical Jewish theology is a bit sharper on this point, that there is no easy answer here, it's contextual. And the thing is that we have two statements that are true, and we have to balance on this plank so that we don't fall off into one side.
Well, right, and I think that I would say that if not for, and this is a really big if, but if not for the crucifixion and resurrection, then I would say it's only the one interpretation of with me, sojourners with me. Afterward, the universalization of what basically, what Christ came to do and fulfilled. I would say the second one is more the case.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to dwelling in that tension, I don't really find it so difficult. But maybe I'm being too simplistic.
We're in the nativity in the rubble epoch of God.
So, should we go to 69?
Are we on 69? We're on 68, dude.
Oh, damn. Okay, so.
Yeah, oh wow.
This responsibility for God's earth means that human beings endowed with intelligence must respect the laws of nature and the delicate equilibria existing between the creatures of this world. For he commanded, and they were created, and he established them forever and ever. He fixed their bonds, and he fixed their bounds, and he set a law which cannot pass away. Psalms 148, 5 and 6. The laws found in the Bible dwell on relationships, not only among individuals, but also with other living beings. Quote, "You shall not see your brother's donkey or his ox fallen down by the way, and without your help, if you chance to come across a bird's nest in any tree or on the ground, with young ones or eggs or mothers sitting upon the young or upon the eggs, you shall not take the mother with the young." Deuteronomy 22, 4, 6. Along these same lines, rest on the seventh day is meant not only for human beings, but also so that your ox and your donkey may have rest. Exodus 23:12. Clearly, the Bible has no place for a tyrannical anthropocentrism, unconcerned for other creatures. Yeah, that sort of echoes back what I was saying, make my case for Christian panentheism.
Yeah.
Donkey
respect.
I could go on to the next one, and then we can do both of them. That was pretty short. Together with our obligation to use the earth's goods responsibly, we are called to recognize that other living beings have a value of their own in God's eyes. Quote, "By their mere existence, they bless him and give him glory. And indeed, the Lord rejoices in his words." Psalms 104:31. By virtue of our dignity and our gifts of intelligence, we are called to respect creation and its inherent laws. For, quote, "The Lord by wisdom founded the earth." Proverbs 3:19. In our time, the church does not simply state that other creatures are completely subordinated to the good of human beings, as if they have no worth in themselves and can be treated as we wish. The German bishops have taught that where other creatures are concerned, quote, "we can speak of the priority of being over that of being useful. The Catechism clearly and forcefully criticizes a distorted anthropocentrism. It's, quote, each creature possesses its own particular goodness and perfection. Each of the various creatures, willed in its own being, reflects in its own way a ray of God's infinite wisdom and goodness. Men must therefore respect the particular goodness of every creation to avoid any disordered use of things. Disordered use. I think that's interesting here. Like, the use of things has a proper ordered usage, right? And disordered use would be wanton destruction of nature, the unnecessary killing of other living beings, etc.
Well, even more basic than that, we can speak of the priority of being over that of being useful.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that just upends the entire. Forget capitalism. Like all hierarchies that produce inequality, all injustice, basically treating the world as if it is disposable.
One thing that's fascinating to me is that this sort of thinking is often referred to, but only as like indigenous wisdom. Like, we need to stop being so Eurocentric, stop being so European about things, and recognize that there's an ordered use. There's some kind of basic goodness to all of nature, every animal, everything has a use, and it's only the European mentality. Life is more complex than that. It's actually really specifically a capitalist, and thus a product of modernity, which is downstream of the Reformation. It's there's a sequence that has to be followed in order to get to the point in which we treat the natural world as purely a matter of exchange value, and it's not because of Europeanness.
Yeah, and also whether or not. Oh, sorry, Mir. I'll just blurt this out real quick. Whether or not essence precedes existence, or existence precedes essence, value precedes usefulness. It precedes use.
Right.
Something is prized and valued by God, the ultimate that we can imagine, or more than that, and it doesn't have to prove itself.
Right.
I think it is easy to read this in a very, and I think it's also correct to read this in an anti-capitalist way. But I think it goes deeper than that as well. It is about, and this was a problem long before capitalism as well. Like a lord, or even in a common person, I have this garden where I grow food. Do I treat this garden as something that only brings me food, or do I till it and keep it to see it as a part of God's gift to the world and to make it more beautiful? Do I see it as having a value beyond what this is giving me? Like I think that is this tendency of trying to reduce our relationships to the world to a subject-object relationship goes far beyond capitalism. I think that's if it is implicit in our linguistic structures or our cognition via the fall or whatever, I do not know. But I think that it is easy to think that these are new problems, and also it is a bit easy to think that these problems will disappear if we solve the problems of production and ownership. No, I think they will still be there. They will not be as prevalent because capitalism creates incentives to view everything in this way. But the fundamental tendency to reduce our relationships to instruments, I think, is a fundamentally human.
Well, yeah, and if you just like examine just a little bit, do a little bit of study of the Arctic Circle or the Aral Sea, or the so-called the so-called Lysenko affair in the Virgin Lands in Kazakhstan, like there's more than just pure profit motive that is at work here. It's the desacralization of the world is itself a problem, and it's all downstream of, but it's not entirely synonymous with profit seeking.
Yeah.
Right.
And the desacralization of the world also entails that the world was sacred before, and in some sense it is always sacred and has always been sacred, but the process of making this a fact, I think, was not always the case in human nature. Just like the process of desacralizing the world was a sociological process that was undertaken with economical and social techniques, I think that there is a lot of evidence that there were similar, like, to make the world sacred was an active project. It is not always something that comes natural to us, but something that the early church really thought hard for.
Yeah.
To like, okay, this is not just a mountain. This is the home of these relics, to like imbue things that we've previously viewed as separate from the metaphysical order, to give them metaphysical and spiritual meaning. And that is something that we will have to learn to do again.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of discussions within Catholicism, and then I guess whatever Eugene McCarher is, I think we figured out that he was Anglo-Catholic, right? About like the Protestant desacralization of the world, or the disenchantment of nature and of the world. And then, of course, pagans and animists say the same thing about Christianity. And to a certain extent, I can see how that's true, but not if you truly understand Christianity. I think that like all the stuff that we've been saying now, where we say that the Spirit of God is within all things, right? Is across the face of the earth and imbues all of its creation. Then there's no possible way that you could say that is a desacralizing or disenchanting view of the world. It's as animist as like pagan religion would be, except for we just don't think of individual items as having their own separate spirits. No, this is all like God's creation, right? It's all part of God. It's all, encompassed in his omnipresence. We have a very, monist view of, spirituality.
Yeah, like this is also something that the early socialist movement truly understood, if not explicitly, so implicitly, that in order to create a fabric for a movement, for a new world, they had to re-sacralize the world in the tradition of the working class, of the class struggle. This street was where Rosa Luxemburg, This is Haymarket. This is Haiti. And to imbue places, stories, people with this metaphysical idea for the struggle for liberation is a view of sacralizing the world.
Well, yeah, like the Communards Wall is still a pilgrimage site in Paris.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this has become exponentially harder with our new and obsessive technologies. But I think also in the future we can resacralize the world with the help of these new technologies. Like, this is something that we have understood, that liberalism, capitalism desacralizes the world. What we have to relearn is how to resacralize it.
All right. So,
well,
finally,
AI is creating new religions. So
Yeah.
I think that's a good example.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
AI is satanic.
Well, I mean, AI is basically like, it is this, what's this rationalist basilisk problem, Rocha's basilisk, and that's basically like a bunch of Silicon Valley nerds thought about AI and created God, but created a Calvinist God, which is like, which is
created a demiurge.
A cruel torturer, which is also known as Calvin's God.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, basically what it did was like recreate the most sadistic form of Calvinism.
Yeah, sinners in the hand of an angry AI.
Yeah.
So, if the AI God is real, then Gnosticism is real. And the evil demiurge holds sway over the earth. We must transcend it. Anyway, moving on to 69. 70. Now we're caught up to Mir's commentary.
Yeah.
In the story of Cain and Abel, we see how envy led Cain to commit the ultimate injustice against his brother, which in turn ruptured the relationship between Cain and God, and between Cain and the earth from which he was banished. This is seen clearly in the dramatic exchange between God and Cain. God asks, "Where is Abel your brother?" Cain answers that he does not know, and God persists, "What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood is crying out to me from the ground, and now you are cursed from the ground." Genesis 4:9-11. Disregard for the duty to cultivate and maintain a proper relationship with my neighbor, for whose care and custody I am responsible, ruins my relationship with my own self, with others, with God, and the earth. When all these relationships are neglected, when justice no longer dwells in the land, the Bible tells us that life itself is endangered. We see this in the story of Noah, where God threatens to do away with humanity because of its constant failure to fulfill the requirements of justice and peace. Quote, "I have determined to make an end of all flesh, for the earth is filled with violence through them." Genesis 6:13. These ancient stories, full of symbolism, bear witness to a conviction which we today share, that everything is interconnected and that genuine care for our own lives and our relationships with nature is inseparable from fraternity, justice, and the faithfulness of others. Man, reading the Old Testament about the Old Testament God and why the Old Testament God was so vengeful, kind of like helps you understand Christianity, right? God is constantly in the Old Testament needing to punish the wicked for their sins. And the sins of the wicked are, if you look at Sodom and Gomorrah, it's injustice and being uncaring towards those in need. And if you look at here, specifically the story of Noah, he talks about violence being done upon one another by human beings. And if you look at the destruction of Jerusalem, right, the vengeance of God and the destruction of Jerusalem and the captivity of the people of Israel is because they are refusing to hold to God's commandments about Jubilee and debt forgiveness and the freeing of slaves and the redistribution of land to the poor every 7 years. And so it's like all of these things that God punishes people for in the Old Testament are there in Jewish theology. It's all stuff that is supposed to be very much a part of the religion of the ancient Israelites. But in Christianity, it becomes front and center. It becomes everything.
Yeah.
Whereas Judaism has its strictures and its purity laws and stuff like that that become sort of the focus of Jewish religion. And in Christianity, it is care for one another and care for one another. Yeah.
Well, but like, I think it's also important to point out that the reason why those strictures developed in Judaism was because of the fact that the possibility for common worship was denied.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, Judaism as it exists today is very much so a post-Second Temple invention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When the possibility for the communion of faith was denied, with the destruction of the temple. I can't remember which exile it is in the grand order of things, but
third, I think.
Yeah, third.
Yeah, that would be the destruction of the temple in 70 by Tiberius, and
exactly. Yeah,
deportation of Jews from the Holy Land.
And I think an important point in that is that when we are denied relationships and the relational core in faith, it is very easy to lapse into formulaic rule following.
Right.
And that is what's happened to the broader left and to the more proper left, that when we are denied proper movements, then all these sectarian rules, all of these purity tests becomes important as a substitute for real communal relationships.
Okay. Although the wickedness of man was great in the earth, Genesis 6:5, and the Lord was, quote, sorry that he had made man on earth, Genesis 6:6. Nonetheless, through Noah, who remained innocent and just, God decided to open the path of salvation. In this way, he gave humanity the chance of a new beginning. All it takes is one good person to restore hope. That's an exclamation point. All it takes is for one good person to restore hope. The biblical tradition clearly shows that this renewal entails recovering and respecting the rhythms inscribed in nature by the hand of the Creator. We see this, for example, in the law of the Sabbath. On the seventh day, God rested from all his work. He commanded Israel to set aside each seventh day as a day of rest, a Sabbath. Genesis 2:2-3, Exodus 16:23, and 20:10. Similarly, every 7 years, a sabbatical year was set aside for Israel, a complete rest for the land, Leviticus 25:1-4. When sowing was forbidden and one reaped only what was necessary to live and to feed one's household, Leviticus 25:4-6. Finally, after 7 weeks of years, which is to say 49 years, the Jubilee was celebrated as a year of general forgiveness and, quote, liberty throughout the land for all its inhabitants, Leviticus 25:10. This law came about as an attempt to ensure balance and fairness in the relationship with others and with the land on which they lived and worked. At the same time, it was acknowledged that the gift of the earth with its fruits belonged to everyone. Those who tilled and kept the land were obliged to share its fruits, especially with the poor, with widows and orphans and foreigners in their midst. Quote, when you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap your fields to their very border. Neither shall you gather the gleanings after the harvest. And you shall not strip your vineyards bare, neither shall you gather the fallen grapes in your vineyard. You shall leave them for the poor and for the sojourner. Leviticus 19:9-10. Okay, I said Jubilee year. What I meant was, was I right when I said Jubilee year? I said every 7 years. The Jubilee year is every 49 years. I said it was every 7 years. Every 7 years is the sabbatical year.
Yeah.
So, yeah. We kind of discussed this whole section already. Is there anything else anyone wants to say?
Yeah, I forgot to say on the last one, but something that all of these exegetical examples show, and he even says in the last paragraph, to fulfill the requirements of justice and peace. And I picked out that phrase specifically because I think it's, if you had to describe like Latin American liberation theology in 2 words, I would say justice and peace.
Sure.
And so, of course, it's like no accident that he's coming from that context. And it's just a really powerful summation of like what basically the entire law is, because it's about restoring the right relationship to, as Mir was saying earlier, people, God, and nature, basically.
It's interesting to think about leaving food for the poor and the sojourners among you while you were watching Israel just, well, I mean, I was going to say rip up olive trees and destroy ancient olive groves that have been there for centuries, but of course also just genocide an entire people.
I was going to say just like literally everything that
Yeah.
that Israel does.
Yeah. I think for those who are not familiar with the Christian tradition, a major function of fasting was also this: to let the earth rest, to let the land rest, and
you could,
that is
like, a lot of Christians do that like once a week or once a month. They'll do an entire day of fasting or something. I know my mom, whenever she's trying to get herself right, or she is really concerned about something, and she's she wants her prayers she wants to center herself in prayer more, she'll fast. Like once a week. Like I remember for a while she's fasting on Mondays. So moving on to 72. The Psalms frequently exhort us to praise God the Creator, who spread out the earth on the waters, for his steadfast love endures forever. Psalm 136:6. They also invite other creatures to join in this praise. Quote, "Praise him, sun and moon, praise him, all you shining stars. Praise him, you highest heavens, and your waters above the heavens. Let them praise the name of the Lord, for he has commanded and they were created." Psalms 148, 3-5. We do not only exist by God's almighty power, we also live with him and beside him. This is why we adore him.
Right. God is not some wholly externalized big other that we fantasize about and worship our own fantasies of. God is in us, surrounding us in all things. We are in communion with God.
Here, we also see something that shows up in St. Francis, the idea that, like, inanimate objects, quote, inanimate objects can praise God. Like the rocks, not only the animals, but the stars, the sun, the rocks, the earth, the trees can praise God.
And that's from one of the Psalms. And I think, if I do not remember wrongly, that's one of the Psalms that you could pray every week in the breviary.
Okay.
And the breviary is the prescribed prayers for all priests and monks and deacons.
Right.
And if I do not misremember, this praise psalm where you praise the stars, heaven, praise the Lord, I think that is said at least once a week. That's
okay. The writings of the prophets invite us to find renewed strength in times of trial by contemplating the all-powerful God who created the universe. Yet God's infinite power does not lead us to flee his fatherly tenderness, because in him affection and strength are joined. Indeed, all sound spirituality entails both welcoming divine love and adoration, confident in the Lord because of his infallible power. In the Bible, the God who liberates and saves is the same God who created the universe, and these two divine ways of acting are intimately and inseparably connected. Quote, "Ah, Lord God, it is you who made the heavens and the earth. By your great power and by your outstretched arm, nothing is too hard for you. You brought your people Israel out of the land of Egypt with signs and wonders." Jeremiah 32:17-21. Quote, "The Lord God is everlasting, God the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not faint or grow weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the faint and strength to the powerless." Isaiah 40:28b-29. I'm going to go ahead and keep reading. These next two sections are short, and then we can discuss all of them. The experience of the Babylonian captivity provoked a spiritual crisis which led to a deeper faith in God. Now his creative omnipotence was given pride of place in order to exhort the people to regain their hope in the midst of their wretched predicament. Centuries later, in another age of trial and persecution, when the Roman Empire was seeking to impose absolute dominion, the faithful would once again find consolation and hope in the growing trust in an all-powerful God. Quote, "Great and wonderful are your deeds, O Lord, the Almighty. Just and true are your ways." Revelation 15:3. The God who created the universe out of nothing can also intervene in this world and overcome every form of evil, and injustice is not invincible. A spirituality which forgets God as all-powerful and creator is not acceptable. That is how we end up worshiping earthly powers, or ourselves, usurping the place of God, even to the point of claiming an unlimited right to trample his creation underfoot. The best way to restore men and women to their rightful place, putting an end to the claim of absolute dominion over the earth, is to speak once more of the figure of the Father who creates, who alone owns the world. Otherwise, human beings will always try to impose their own laws and interests on reality. Damn.
That's such a powerful ending to that whole those three sections. Reading them together makes a lot of sense because imposing human laws onto reality is in fact that's
hubris.
Yes. Just like how the last paragraph right before, or not the last entry right before that, injustice is not invincible, is just a really powerful note to end on.
Yeah.
It's just this entire encyclical is just so beautifully poetically written.
Yeah.
I really, really just want to urge the listener to take it and read it and ponder and tarry with it, and just meditate on every word, because it's beautiful. It's just, you can't do it justice just by listening to us talk about it, even though you should listen to it also.
Think about how blasphemous the idea of naturally occurring markets is, right? The invisible hand of the market as a natural phenomenon, because human beings are meant to engage in commerce. That's just the most demonic blasphemy.
Yeah, I
It
mean,
really is.
I think it's related to this, but this is so anti-doomer.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, his all it takes is one person to restore hope. I mean, he literally exclaims that.
Yeah.
He's shouting it but I think that's an outgrowth of this view that every person is necessary. Nothing is sort of set in stone. It's all of this is the same related idea that if this is really true, that God is reflected in all of this, then all of it is absolutely necessary and can make a difference, basically. That there's no reason to despair that we're on this track or train because we have this sort of great hope on our side.
To quote Ben, everything matters.
Well, yes, and I think one of the most challenging parts is to remain hopeful in these extremely bleak times, and to keep, basically what Gramsci said, a pessimism of the intellect and an optimism of the will.
Right. If you're a pessimist, your pessimism must be dialectical.
Yes.
I mean, our pessimism here on the Regrettable Century is one that has no faith in the solutions that are provided by the disgusting system and current ordering of things. We have to be pessimistic in these options in order to transcend them.
Yeah.
And that's what makes our pessimism dialectical. And very Christian, really.
Yeah.
Because it's Hegelian.
Well, I mean,
and Hegel ultimately is a Christian.
And also pessimistic in our, we cannot reason ourselves out of our situation. We cannot plan ourselves out of our situation. That is an important part of it. We cannot manifest God's hope in the world without reason and planning, but that alone is not enough.
Yeah.
I think the only thing I want to add is that for some listeners, it only takes a single person to bring back to reignite hope, to provide a spark, whatever. It's like that's like that might be easy to dismiss because we're talking about the movement of the masses are necessary, and so I guess maybe a single person is very few, but I don't think anybody could dismiss the fact that the Granma landed in Oriente province with 82 guerrillas, and the end result of that was the victory of the Cuban Revolution.
Right.
It wasn't that many more than one.
I think that statement is returning faith into a materialist plane.
Yeah.
And this entire thing is also speaking to the sources of that hope that is undying.
Рабочие крестьяне не смогут прожить без нас. Без нас некому будет установить порядок, определить работу, принудить к труду. Без нас все развалится и государство распадется.